Bendy and Boris in the Inky Mystery by this animated phantom and Mirko A. Chapter 7 Pack a Bag. Bendy was right. This sucked. The pigs had questioned him in circles, but Bendy stayed a step ahead of them at each spin they gave him. He answered questions with questions, refused to get frustrated at their baits or threats. He simply lounged back and smirked. There were a few he refused to answer. They tried to tell him that they had enough evidence to arrest him or Boris, and he poked holes in their claims and statements. It was actually kind of fun making the pigs more and more frustrated as the hours wore on. Eventually, he just put on an easygoing smile, like a mask, and switched to automatic sarcasm and jokes. Could you send in the detectives? They are way nicer to look at, and I'm sure they won't ask me the same question 3 dozen times. Bendy complained lightly. He hadn't seen either detective since he entered the building. He guessed with the break-in and loss of evidence, they were busy ripping the officers in charge of securing that kind of stuff apart. Snotford continued his glaring.
No, if you would just cooperate, then we would be done here.
You mean confess, and I'll say it again. I didn't do anything. Bendy threw an arm over the back of his chair and leaned it back on 2 legs. Snotford huffed. Were you that splotchy when the big bad blew your sticks away? Bendy asked.
That's enough! We both know you're dirty!
The pig squealed. Well, of course I'm dirty. Bendy sighed. He watched the wind in Snotford's sails drop like a break in surprise.
What?
He stammered. I was shoved into the ground today. Honestly, I need to get home and shower before these cuts get infected. Bendy stated, looking at his other arm and the small scrapes running up it. Snotford turned so splotchy that for a second, Bendy actually feared something would pop.
You damn devil!
The door suddenly opened, stopping Snotford from flipping the table or lunging at Bendy. He wasn't really sure which the hog would have gone for. Hogsman stood in the doorway. Oh boy, are we switching again? Bendy cheered with mock glee.
You're free to go,
he said and stepped aside. Bendy didn't wait a second. He stuck his hands in his pockets and strolled by with his easy smile still on. He posed as he passed the chief. Thanks, buddy, old pal. Don't go twisting your hair in a bale. I'm sure you'll catch the schmucks that did this, Bendy said. Hogsman turned and glared daggers with his beady black eyes.
I swear, boy, I bring the ones who did this down.
Bendy knew it was a threat against him. It was stupidly obvious, but still. He turned fully, and suddenly his cheery mood dropped with his smile to show how he really felt. His eyes narrowed, and darkness withered in excitement around him. I really hope you do, sir. Whoever they are almost got my brother, and I don't take that lightly. Before either swine could react to their instinctual terror, Bendy spun on his heels and was gone. Bendy found Boris tightly curled up on an uncomfortable waiting chair. He was too tall to lay on it completely, so his legs half dangled off the edge. Bendy chuckled at the puppy-like smile on his sleeping face. He was such a kid. Oh! Bendy turned to see the raccoon dame standing in the hall entrance. She had a blanket and a cup of water in hand. Bendy smiled. You're finally free, huh? I guess that's where Featherworth disappeared to. She must have really chewed the chief out. She put the blanket and cup down on a table next to the boys. Guess I was too late. Oh well, at least you both get to go home now. She shrugged. It's still appreciated, Bendy said. Sorry we left you to the wolves. She glanced at Boris, then huffed at herself. I mean pigs.
I get what you mean,
he said.
Don't you worry about it.
The break-in just... She made a helpless gesture. Bendy waved it off. He turned to shake Boris awake. We did get around to questioning that Pete guy. Boy, he sure is a piece of work. I can't imagine calling him my boss, Rachel said.
Yeah, he's a handful,
Bendy shrugged.
But whatever got food on the table was fine by me.
Do you want a ride home? It's getting pretty late, she offered. Bendy paused. Normally, he'd love a ride. Right now, he wanted to walk. The cool night air would clear his mind, and the stars and moon would help relax him. He would have time to really think about what happened. But, and he hated that there was a but, he had seen someone die yesterday. He could have lost his brother today. Now he couldn't deny that there was at least one person out there that had attacked the garage. He didn't know if they were targeting Boris, or him, or Pete, but they were still out there. No, it was too dangerous to walk at night anymore.
Sure,
he answered.
That's real kind of you, detective.
He gently nudged Boris, who groaned and opened his eyes. Oh, Bendy, good morning. Is it time for work? I think I broke my bed. My neck hurts. Boris mumbled, still half asleep.
Bendy chuckled. No, bro, I think you're bad swine.
Boris looked confused at Bendy, then down at the chair. He glanced at the room before he stopped at the raccoon. Oh! He sat up and stretched. Ringtail couldn't help smiling at how cute they were.
We're getting a ride home, Boris,
Bendy said. Boris's tail gave a small wag. It was just as Bendy had thought. The night was cool and fresh. The thin sliver of moon grinned down at him. The stars glittered their greetings. The leaves danced in the soft breeze that carried pleasant woodland smells. It did his nerves good. Ringtail led them to the car. So, was anything else missing? Boris asked Ringtail as she drove. The wolf covered a yawn with his gloved hand. She glanced at them before focusing on the road again. Just the book. Nothing else was taken that we are aware of, she said. What was the journal? Boris asked. We're not sure. It was written in strange symbols. He was a brainy bird that studied old and dead languages. We were going to take it back to Toontown with us to get it translated once we were done here. Best guess, it was probably just old research notes. Those studying types are protective of their research. She shrugged. But with it gone, who really knows? Bendy furrowed his brows. That seemed familiar to him for some reason. She pulled up to their apartment and dropped them off. You boys have a good night. Featherworth and I will probably be by tomorrow to check on you. Okay, good night, Boris called as she drove off. Bendy let out a huge yawn. Boris turned to his brother and said, Let's go to bed. Bendy nodded. He was so tired. He used his talent roughly 2 times today. Well, almost 2 times. The second was stopped multiple times. Anyway, it was way more than he was used to, and it was exhausting. He and Boris shuffled toward their home. Bendy. Boris seemed nervous. Are we gonna talk about what happened to you today? I'm worried. Bendy inwardly grimaced. Of course he would be. Bendy was too, but he just kept shoving it away. Tomorrow, bro. Just one more shove. A little more time to not really think about it. One more evening of him pretending it was okay, that he was healthy. They came to the door and he dug for his keys. Promise? Boris asked. Promise. It's not like we have any work. he said, reaching for the doorknob. Boris gasped, his hands flying to the sides of his head.
"Oh no, your new job! I completely forgot. I'm so sorry, Bendy. Do you think Sasha will be mad? She has to give you another chance. She has to."
Bendy chuckled. "I'm sure she'll." He trailed off, his surprised eyes flashing to the door. The door swung open on his touch, without him unlocking it or turning the knob. He noticed the knob was busted from some kind of impact. "Boris, stay here," Bendy ordered tensely.
"Bro, what's going on?"
Boris asked, staring at the door. "Don't know. Stay here till I call for you," Bendy said.
"Be careful,"
Boris said. Bendy slipped into their apartment and nearly cursed out loud. Their place was wrecked. The couch was slashed and the walls busted. He peeked into the kitchen, which was trashed. Glassware was busted, food was tossed about, so on. He quietly made his way over the glass to the living room. The TV was oddly still there, just knocked over. Down the hall, the bathroom looked like the kitchen, stuff tossed around. He peeked into Boris's room and growled softly. It was in worse condition than the others. His bed was flipped, clothes and shelves thrown around. The closet was open and ripped apart. He turned to his room. It was in a similar state to Boris, everything thrown about or broken. His bed was also flipped. He checked his closet and then made his way through the wreckage of their few worldly possessions to the living room. "Okay, Boris, it's all clear," he called. He heard the front door open and the wolf gasp.
"What happened?"
"Someone broke in," Bendy said, and righted the TV. "Huh, it wasn't broken."
"A robbery?"
Boris asked, making his way to the living room. Bendy shrugged. "Why'd they leave this, then?" he asked, patting his hand on the box. Boris blinked.
"Maybe it was just one person and they couldn't get it out by themselves?"
he guessed, cocking his head to the side. He started making his way to his room. "I don't think so, bro," Bendy said. He followed the wolf to his room and leaned against the doorframe. Boris knelt down and started going through the mess. "There are no hateful messages, so I don't think it's a hate crime either. I think they were looking for something."
"But what?"
Boris looked up to him. Bendy shrugged. After a minute, Boris's shoulders fell.
"What should we do, Bendy?"
The kid looked up again. The little demon saw the glossiness of unshed tears in his eyes. Bendy just felt as overwhelmed and scared. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. It wasn't like he hadn't been thinking about this idea all day. Ever since he saw the flames, or truthfully, it was the accident yesterday. Well, son, they had to run. It was the only thing he could think to do. Pack a bag. He sounded so dreary, like he was giving up to fate. "We can't stay here tonight. It's too dangerous." Boris's ears perked up. His eyes widened a little.
"Are we coming back?"
Bendy gave him a serious look that answered his question. Something like worry passed over the young wolf's face. He nodded and stood up. Bendy pushed off the doorframe and headed to his room. He dug up a side pouch and a backpack. He went through his things and only packed the most important items. He found that half of his emergency cash had been stolen, but the rest was still hidden in different spots. After he dropped by the bathroom to find his toothbrush and some other essentials, he looked at what he had. It was still pretty light. He decided he could take some things that he had, just because he liked them. A book written by his favorite author, Felix the Cat, his backup pair of goggles, the drawing Boris had given to him the first time Boris ever got his hands on drawing utensils. It was of them, of course, standing on top of a mountain of food. And he pulled out the only photo of him and Boris they owned. He found a photo, crushed in the living room. The frame was destroyed, but the picture was okay. Sasha had it taken a couple years back. They were sitting at a table, laughing at something Boris had said. Boris's eyes were closed from laughing so hard, his head thrown back. Bendy was looking at his brother, a hand on Boris's arm to hold himself up from doubling over. The lights of the club gave it a fuzzy, dreamlike landscape. He carefully packed it away. He went back to his room to give it one last look over. He was just about to head out when he nearly tripped. He scowled down and froze. It was a pair of his pants, spattered with old blood. He picked the clothing up. Wilson. Would any of this be happening if he had just said no to helping him? He clenched his fist in frustration and felt something crumple. Bendy blinked and reached into the pants pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. A paper covered in strange writing. The memory of where this paper came from snapped to the front of Bendy's mind. He unfolded it and tried to see if he could make any heads or tails of it. Sadly, he couldn't even figure out which way he was supposed to hold it. With a disgruntled noise in the back of his throat, he folded it back up and stuck it in the pocket of his vest. He looked around the room and let the facts sink in. He had a page from Wilson written in an unknown language. The cops had just lodged a journal from Wilson written in an unknown language. He felt his heart sink to his feet. At least he now might know why they had ransacked his apartment. He made his way to the living room and dropped his backpack and side pouch by the ripped-up couch. He spotted Boris in the kitchen. "Boris!" The wolf flinched. "Stay out of the kitchen. You're gonna cut up your paws," Bendy said. Boris gingerly tiptoed out of the room. Just as Bendy thought, the wolf had changed his garage boots to the light open-paw bands that Bendy could hardly call shoes. Bendy never understood Boris's great dislike of wearing covering shoes. He much preferred his bare paws, and with the thick pads he had, Bendy was usually fine with it. It was at the garage that Bendy had to put his foot down and force the kid into shoes. It had been funny at first. Bendy would find Boris' shoes hidden and thrown away, claiming he lost them. It escalated to him chewing them up. Bendy had to threaten to buy metal knife boots and a tongue lashing from Pete about policy before Boris gave in. Now, though, the kid was trapezing around the kitchen full of broken glass on practically bare paws.
"Sorry,"
he said sheepishly.
"I thought I would try to get a couple utensils and any food that we could take with us."
Bendy sighed as Boris held up 2 knives, forks and spoons. "Just don't get hurt. Did you get any glass in you?" Bendy asked. Boris shook his head with a smile. "I'll get the food. Did you pack everything?" Boris nodded. Bendy blinked. "Really?"
"Yeah, I had a pack ready for a while now,"
Boris admitted, putting the silverware in his bigger bag. He looked back at Bendy with a smile.
"I just wanted to be ready if anything happened."
Bendy stayed quiet and collected the canned food and anything that wouldn't spoil quickly and brought it to Boris. His thoughts circling Boris' statement and all the unsaid ramifications. Exactly what had Boris been preparing for? The young wolf put an envelope on the windowsill. Bendy gave Boris a questioning look.
"It's for the detectives. I thought maybe to explain why we left."
"It doesn't say where we're going?" Bendy checked. Boris shook his head. "Good. Okay then." With packs taken care of, the two looked around the place that had been home for the past few years. The great days, the terrible days, the fights, the pranks, and so on. Bendy pulled his stuff on, and Boris hefted the big bag. It wasn't because he was stronger. It was just that Boris was so much taller than Bendy and could carry the big pack. Dang it, don't judge him. He didn't just call himself short.
So, where are we going?
Boris asked. Bendy pursed his lips in thought. He didn't want to, but it was only for one night. I was thinking we should ask Sasha to house us for a night, and then make our way to you-know-where, Bendy said. Boris nodded, his eyes full of questions, but knowing that Bendy wouldn't answer anything here, he didn't bother trying to ask. The two headed out into the night.
What about the detectives? They're from Toontown. I bet they'd help us,
Boris suggested. I think they might, or at least they'd want to. But right now, we're suspects in arson and hell. Bendy shrugged. Hogsman probably wants me for what happened to Wilson too. I doubt those mud lovers will let them just live with us. Not now. I'm sure there are rules and all that jazz. Besides, if we did go with them, then they'll lock us up in Toontown. Boris frowned sadly.
I don't think they're like that.
No, probably not. But they still have to find out what happened to Wilson, and apparently everyone else that was involved with that bird. Whether I'm a witness or suspect, they won't let me go anywhere, and that means we wouldn't be able to go find that friend.
Maybe if we just gave them some time, Detective Featherworth could find a way,
Boris offered weakly. We don't have time. Whoever is after us burned down the garage and broke into the police station. The police station, Boris. There isn't anywhere safe in the whole town. No, we need to scram, and scram now, Bendy stated certainly. Afterward, it was a quiet walk to the dancing lady. The late night enveloped the sleeping town. Boris spent a good amount of time worrying his lip. There was one other thing. He couldn't handle waiting on his tail about this. He worked up the nerve to finally say something.
Bendy, I know we were going to talk about this in the morning.
Boris swallowed.
But about your...
Boris felt his bravery wane. My illness? Bendy offered weakly. Boris blinked and stared in sorrowful surprise to Bendy's downcast expression. Yeah, Boris, I know.
You're admitting it?
Boris whispered. He hadn't expected that. Bendy always claimed to be fine, even in the middle of a flu. Bendy chuckled bitterly. How can I deny it after what happened today? That was the most intense pain I've ever felt. It was like my insides were on fire. I almost started to scream. Bendy admitted. He shrugged uselessly. There's no use avoiding it. Something's wrong with me. Boris's eyes were huge and glassy. He didn't know what to say. They fell silent again as Bendy allowed Boris to gather his thoughts. Bendy had come to terms with this. He had thought about it in the interrogation room and on the drive to the apartment. Wilson had died trying to save people. Bendy had been really cruel denying him, and in extension, everyone he had tried to help. People who might have felt that kind of pain. Bendy wasn't sure it was illness, but Wilson had been. Wilson would have been the best at identifying it, after all, right? Bendy wished he had asked how the owl was able to tell with just a touch.
Is it the ink?
Boris whispered. Don't know, he admitted.
Is there anything I can do?
Boris asked. Bendy smiled. Just keep doing what you're doing. Boris nodded his head. His lip was shaking and his shoulders hunched a little.
Yeah.
Bendy's eyebrows shot up. Hey, Boris, what's this?
I can't do anything,
he whimpered. Don't say that. You're my whole reason to try and do anything at all. What do you mean you can't do anything? If it wasn't for you, I'd just sleep on the couch all the time. You do everything, Boris, Bendy stated. Boris only nodded as silent tears escaped him. There was a heartbeat of silence before Bendy cut in front of Boris and stopped walking. Where's my happy little Wolfie? He asked. His little brother gave him a watery smile.
Here I am.
Oh, Boris. Bendy gazed at him, his light smile falling. It's all right, bud. We're still together. I'm doing great right now. Nothing to cry over.
I know. I'm sorry. I just need...
Boris struggled to speak. He was trying to hold back, and somehow that was making it worse. He just hadn't expected Bendy to admit it. He didn't expect it to be so scary. It was different. A line was crossed that could never be uncrossed. It wasn't, he might get sick. No, it was, he is sick. And it hit him hard. It wasn't, he could be in danger. It was, he could die soon. And that hit like a ton of bricks. Reality was worse than what-ifs. Don't apologize, bud. Bendy pulled him down gently until Boris was crouched before him, like a dog being told to sit. He held Boris' muzzle gently and wiped the tears from his furry face. You know I'd never just disappear on you, bro. I love you and I'm not planning on going anywhere without you.
Promise?
He asked between his somewhat squished cheeks and stuffed nose. Promise, Bendy said.
I just don't want to see you hurting, Bendy,
he whimpered. I know, but there are going to be some things we can't help. Bendy started.
So we just keep going on.
Boris finished the little motivator from childhood. Right. Bendy nodded and smiled.
Love you, big bro,
Boris said. Love you too, Boris, Bendy said and let Boris go. Boris smiled genuinely and sniffed.
Thanks,
he mumbled, wiping at his face, a little embarrassed. Don't worry about it. It's been quite a day and I'm a bit shaken up too, Bendy admitted. The two started again and reached the dark dancing ladies soon after. They easily broke in. Seriously, Sasha, what was with these sad locks? And climbed their way up to the third floor. They shared a look at the door to the loft. Bendy held his breath and knocked. There was a long stretch of silence. Boris and Bendy shared another look and knocked again. It was the third time that the door swung open, and Bendy suddenly found a barrel of a shotgun in his face. What some white schmucks break into my club and have the guts to knock on my door at cussing 1 in the morning? Sasha snapped. Hiya, Sash. Bendy waved sheepishly. You have the smallest pea brain to skip work without a call on your first night and come here at 1 in the morning to say something about it. How did you get in here? Sasha snarled. You must have heard what happened. Bendy tried to sidestep the weapon, only to have it follow him. Of course I did! And not even one phone call? I'm sorry, he tried. Sorry?
We really are sorry.
Boris jumped in. The gun lowered immediately, and Boris found himself wrapped up in a tight hug. Oh, Boris, sweetie pie, I'm so sorry. That must have been so scary for you, she cooed. He blushed.
No, I'm okay. Please don't be mad at Bendy. The cops were trying to get him arrested this afternoon.
What? She pulled back to see Boris's face. Yeah, we were locked in interrogation rooms all afternoon, Bendy said. I didn't get a phone call, but at least I ain't wearing stripes. Those detectives? She seemed horrified.
No, they were nice the whole time. They gave us a ride home, Boris said. It was not friend Hawksman.
She nodded with a relieved sigh. Good, good. She planted her fists on her curvy hips. Bendy noted the long silk bathrobe and her loose hair, not hidden under her usual hat. She was cute like this. Now, what are you doing here? She looked between them and noticed the bags. She raised a thin brow. Are you two planning a trip? Mind if we come in and explain? Bendy asked wearily. Sasha looked lost, but nodded. The next hour was the boys going back and forth, explaining the day, leaving out the ink stuff, and ending with the destruction of their apartment. You didn't call the cops? She gasped. And what? Tell them we were attacked? Again? Why? So they can put me back into their damn box? It won't make a difference, boss. Bendy grumbled. She spent time arguing his choice. Bendy didn't budge. Look, Sash, just trust us, he said. We wouldn't be doing this unless we thought we had another choice. Sasha twisted her head back and forth between the two, looking completely distressed. Is there nothing I can do beyond a couch? She practically pleaded. Boris and Bendy shared a sad look.
Sorry, Miss Sasha. We don't want to drag you into all this. It's dangerous,
Boris explained. Bendy shuddered as a strange comparison struck him. She looked like she wanted to cry. Bendy felt numb. He had gone full circle, hadn't he? He had to hold back a bitter laughter. He absorbed the irony of his position. Had it been just over a week? How had he ended up in Wilson's exact position in just a week? Too dangerous to explain? Can I sleep on your couch? Horrible people after us? Can't trust anyone? It had to be a sick joke. What god had Bendy upset for this to happen? We'll be gone in the morning, Bendy promised, to add to the bitter irony. So this was how that featherhead had felt. Bendaboo, it is morning. Stay as long as you need, honey. Don't you worry, I don't mind, Sasha said. Bendy glanced at the clock and groaned as 3 o'clock ticked by.
Can we sleep now?
Boris asked. Sasha tittered with laughter. Yes, Boris. Go to sleep. You both have been through enough. Boris took the full couch, and Bendy fit perfectly on the love seat. He was so tired he didn't have the energy to be annoyed. Bendy couldn't shake his disturbed feelings. Was this how Wilson had started out? Just asking a friend to house him for an evening, until he ran out of friends or was too afraid to contact them. Bendy didn't want to endanger Sasha in this madness. He didn't want to feel empathy toward the bird. To Bendy, he was the guy that dragged his brother into this, and Bendy couldn't forgive him for that, even if he was dead. He hoped he didn't end up dragging innocent people into these insane problems. Bendy bit his lip. But he already had, hadn't he? Boris was next to him, wasn't he? Bendy swore then and there it would just be the two of them, and he would do anything in his power to protect Boris on this journey. He had to. It was his responsibility, even above finding this Oswald guy and possibly the ink machine. More important than even a cure. Boris had to get out of this, okay. And with that thought, Bendy slipped into sleep.